Welcome friends, and thank you once again for tuning into Chill Guitar Reviews. This week I have for you a review of the very first guitar I've bought for myself this year. Yes, believe it or not, it has been 6-7 months since I've actually bought a guitar for myself. The previous one before this was the headless 7-string anniversary Legato, which I still have and still love. Now recently I got the itch for a Flying V. I absolutely love the Flying V body shape, and I've owned about 10 or so over the years, various makes, various models. One of my earliest and fondest guitar memories was buying a Kramer Vanguard Rhodes V guitar, and I still have that guitar to this very day. I will get it out for a video very soon. But that was my just absolute go-to workhorse for all the gigging and playing in bands I did in my teen years. So massive Flying V fan. I have reviewed a few on the channel, Jackson, Epiphone, LTD, Solar, like a whole bunch of them, so I can't get enough of these guitars. Now, this week I bring you a full chilled review of the brand new Dean Vengeance Select. Now, this new line of Dean Vengeance guitars is actually available in 2 flavors currently. You have the Select single pickup, which I have here, which is a black satin finish Tune-o-matic bridge, very straightforward spec. And we have a fancier looking one with 2 pickups, a Evertune bridge, and a beautiful looking quilted maple top. Now, the keen-eyed among you may have spotted that this new Vengeance Dean V is actually pretty much like a rebadged, repainted version of Dean's Dave Mustaine signature guitar, which I don't have a problem with at all. It's an awesome shape. I really like the way it looks. And actually, it's inspired me to go with the All Megadeth playlist for this video review, so enjoy. Now, these guitars have kind of an interesting story behind them. Now, these were originally announced in 2021. They were supposed to launch in time for the 2022 model year. But what happened was Dean became embroiled in a guitar lawsuit with none other than the big boys Gibson. Now, Dean, or actually Dean's parent company, Armadillo Enterprises, were sued by Gibson for copying Gibson's classic Flying V body shape, which is not this shape, it's the one with the rounded off horns that we all know and love, basically. So what happened was a huge batch of these Dean Vengeance brand new Flying V guitars were manufactured, and they ended up just being sat in warehouses for like 2 years whilst this lawsuit was worked out between them. So only now are these guitars becoming available. At the time of doing this video, I wasn't able to buy one of these in the UK. I actually had to import this guitar, and I wasn't planning on buying a new guitar or a Flying V particularly, although I had been getting the itch for a Flying V for a while. And I'd mentioned to a couple of you, I think my man, Comrade McDermott, we'd have some chats on socials about wanting a Flying V. This thing came up on Reverb for what seemed like a ridiculous price. Not really being able to justify the purchase, I thought, well, what I'll do is I'll put in a best offer that's kind of taking the piss a little bit, and you know, that way I can sort of justify it if it gets accepted. You know, in my mind, I'm not actually buying it, it's an offer I can't refuse. So anyway, that offer got accepted. This guitar's come to me all the way from the States, brand spanking new, you know, still factory sealed in its box. But all said and done, this guitar has landed with me, customs fees paid, shipping paid, all that for about 830 quid, something like that. Which really is a bargain when you look at the specs that are being offered for the price point. So we have an Eastern mahogany body, satin black finish with some lovely white beveling that extends all the way up the neck and the headstock, and I think really sets this guitar off. If it was all just solid matte black, it would be a little bit dull and would probably disappear on stage if you're using it as a stage guitar, which is a flying V, you should be. So the white beveling all the way around the horns, the neck, that's just like the absolute best kind of cherry on top of the aesthetics of this guitar, in my opinion. We have a proper branded Tone Pros Tunematic bridge, a single Fishman Fluence modern pickup. We have jumbo stainless steel fret, a proper Graphtec new bone nut, and we have Grover mini Rotomatic tuner heads. I would have probably liked to have seen lock-in tuners, but you're getting a great deal otherwise, so I can kind of let it go. It's not that big of a deal, really. So Dean are kind of coming out swinging. You know, they've been on the rocks a little bit the last few years, so they're clearly trying to make themselves a player again in this crowded guitar market with a great set of specs on paper. Let's talk about build quality right now, because as we know, and is my kind of mantra that I say on this channel, specs are only ever half the story. So how well is it actually thrown together? Well, look, build quality wise, there is nothing on this guitar that is making it not fit for purpose, right? So there's no manufacturing flaws, the neck isn't warped, there's no badly set nuts where the strings aren't gonna fit or anything like that. However, this thing does seem to be assembled with a real lack of finesse and a lack of attention to detail, really below what I would expect for like an Indonesian guitar, which this is at this sort of price point. We recently did a review on the channel of the Ibanez Tim Henson TOD10, and in that video, I love that guitar, and I pointed out that an Indonesian guitar around that price point, you're gonna get a really great set of specs, but you are not gonna get that real pinpoint, minute attention to detail that you're gonna get with something made in Japan or the high-end Korean stuff. You know, there was just a few little things on that guitar that were like nothing to moan about, but just things you need to expect really when you're buying sort of around this kind of mid-range price point. Now, unfortunately, this Flying V really is below that sort of bar I've set, if you like. There's a number of issues with this guitar that was a little bit disappointing when I pulled it out of the box. First and foremost, the nut is just really sloppily set. There's glue residue, there's marks, it's got a gap on one side. It's really not been installed very well at all. The guitar holds tune really well, so there's no functional issues there at all that I can see. That was a disappointment. The nut generally is the first thing I go for. Fretwork wise, you know, stainless steel frets are a bit of a lottery. Sometimes they can be like sandpaper out of the box. These actually feel nice, they're nicely polished. I had no issues playing over them when I took it out of the box. But cosmetically, the ends of the frets are quite rough. There's scrape marks. There's some tooling marks I can see still on this ebony fretboard. Again, just a general sort of lack of QC, you know, attention to detail. And when you get further up the body, you know, you can start to see things like this guitar has glow-in-the-dark side dots, not genuine lumen lace side dots. But when you look at the 24th fret, the two there are just so on the piss. It's just crazy that somebody could look at that and let it go out of the factory like that. They're incredibly wonky. They have paint residue around them. You know, it kind of spoils the look a little bit. These awesome looking super sharp horns on this V. The actual finish on the very tips of them is pretty rough. You know, like I almost thought one of them was damaged to begin with when I took it out, but it's just been manufactured slightly rough, and the paint finish is not straight and it's not clean. Look, build quality wise, I have to say, I love the way this thing feels. It stays in tune great. There is just a really disappointing lack of attention to detail and lack of QC. This thing really should have been a B stock. I'm not moaning because I think I got it at a great price, and I'm certainly not going to complain to the retailer or anything. But yeah, not really a great start for Dean's sort of return to form with this example. Is there anybody out there who's watching who's bought one of these brand new Deans? They have an Explorer in this range as well. I'm interested to see if this guitar is an anomaly, because you know there's always one or two in a batch that aren't going to be great. You know, maybe the rest of them out there are awesome. This one though, cosmetically disappointing. Carrying on for build quality, look, let's talk about ergonomics, because a flying V can be a bloody awkward thing to play and own. So every flying V is really quite different. So I've reviewed a bunch of them on the channel now, from Jackson, Epiphone, Solar, LTD. They all take a different approach. You know, some flying Vs will have rounded off shouldering, so you can kind of rest your arm there easier. Some of them have a totally flat top. Some of them have the input jack on the lower horn, some of them the input jack on the upper horn. It can be totally different. Now, overall, ergonomics wise, the neck thickness is quite a nice balance. It's not ultra thin like an Ibanez, but it's not clubby and thick and narrow like a sort of Gibson Epiphone neck would be. I think they've struck a really nice balance with the neck. It's a 25.5-inch scale with a 12-inch radius, so it should be comfortable for most players. So I think that's really well judged. The body, look, I mean, weight-wise, this thing is super light. This is one of the lightest flying Vs I've ever played. Some of that has to probably do with the fact it's only a single pickup guitar, you know, so you don't have the weight of two pickups in there, but you still have a load of wood that would otherwise be missing. So I think the weight, the balance overall is really well judged. I really like to play flying Vs with a strap, as you can see, even if I'm sat down, just because it kind of hangs there nicely. This thing has no neck dive to speak of whatsoever. So ergonomics wise, I think this is executed really well. The body is a good thickness. It's not ridiculously chonky like a Gibson V can sometimes be. Now, placement of the input jack, which is always a controversial thing on flying Vs. Everybody has differing opinions about the best place for an input jack on a V. I think this is really well judged because it's miles up on the upper horn. It's actually there, I'm putting my finger on it now. So it's way out of the way of anything like a guitar strap or a wireless pack, or if you're sat down, you want to play it like that with your leg in there, it's not going to be even touching your leg. So I really have no issues at all ergonomically with this guitar. I think it's one of the best flying Vs I've actually played ergonomically. Now, how does this thing sound? Well, I mean, look at this thing. It looks like an absolute thrash metal weapon. I don't know what it is, but something about the flying V shape I just find really inspiring. When I pick one up in my hands, like in a way that a normal guitar just doesn't really do it for me. I don't know what it is, I just want to pick up a flying V and just play down-picked thrash just as fast as I possibly can. So this being a single pickup guitar, you may think that you're sort of fairly limited in the scope of what you can do, and you are in some ways, but like not as much as you probably think. Now, this is a Fishman Fluence Modern. It has two voicings. One, you know, the super active, scooped, not much low end, kind of honky as hell, cocked wah type sound. Voice 2, a little bit more open, some more low end, a little bit more like a passive pickup. Here is some sort of clean playing with this thing, and I really think it's quite usable, especially on voice 2 like I'm using here. You might be surprised to learn that yes, this thing does the brutes, the chugs, it sounds awesome and tight and just gnarly, but you can also do clean passages if you want to with this thing, and I think you could get away with it. You know, Wes Borland from Limp Bizkit famously used his bridge pickup for all the clean tones basically on Limp Bizkit stuff, and it sounded great. So look, one pickup, it's not as sonically limiting as you might think. And I don't know if it is because this thing has one pickup and it's got a lot more wood in it than a two pickup guitar would have, but I'm certainly getting some sort of a little bit of special sauce with this guitar that I can't really communicate to you, but I'm really digging it. I really like the way this thing feels and sort of resonates in my hands. So the all-new Dean Vengeance guitars are finally available after being embroiled in some lawsuit nonsense for 2-3 years. I really like what this guitar gives me for the price point. It feels awesome, sounds awesome. I just want a focused thrash metal machine, which is exactly what this thing is. On the other hand, this is cosmetically one of the shonkiest built guitars I've reviewed in a while. There's probably only one that was probably worse than this in the past year or so, and that was that blue Jackson I reviewed. So there just needs to be slightly better QC, do you know what I mean? Just somebody to spend 30 seconds looking at it and go, fix that, fix that, fix that. Like, and you could fix all these kind of little niggly things at the point of manufacture. So, I don't know, the serial number on this guitar is 2021. So this has been built, you know, in COVID era, stuck in a box and waiting around for 2-3 years before Dean had actually been allowed to sell it. So, you know, maybe that's something to do with it, I don't know. Anyone else who's bought one of these new generation Dean guitars, please let me know in the comments, like, how did you get on? What's your example like? Is it like this? Has it been better? I'd really be interested to hear how everybody else has done who's bought one of these things. I may have some customization plans in the works for this particular guitar. Maybe the pickup's gonna get changed. I've got a few little things I'm gonna do to it. So I'm gonna do a follow-up video on that because it's been ages since I've owned a Flying V and I'm enjoying it so much. So do keep an eye out for that video. If you've got this far in the video, thank you so much for watching. Please do like this video and subscribe to the channel because it really helps me and it inspires me to keep working hard, producing high quality content for you like this. Better yet, you can also support me via the Buy Me a Coffee link. Any and all financial support is very gratefully received and it goes straight back into the channel. So do check out the Buy Me a Coffee link in the video description below. Until the next chilled review, do take care of yourselves and I'll see you soon.